everyone can pull a number in seconds now. So being fast doesn't make you valuable anymore. Being trusted does. This morning, live, we showed a room what that looks like. A skill wrote the whole Monday report in about a minute. Fine, anyone can do that now. Then we broke the data on purpose, and a hook caught it and refused to ship the report. Nothing prompted it. It just fired. I've shipped wrong numbers before. Everyone who's done this job long enough has. This catches them before they ever reach a deck. That's the part that changes a career, not the speed. The Monday hour becomes 5 minutes, and the numbers hold up when someone pushes back.
Welcome again, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And today we are talking about Claude Code 101. We will go through some of the building blocks of Claude Code in making workflows really efficient. And these are, and perhaps many of you might have heard of these. And we'll do a poll in just a little bit around the components that we're going to go through today would be skills, agents, hooks, and then why they are different and how they beat sort of like just traditional chat windows if you've used probably the more mainstream version of interface to AI. And so roughly speaking, I think we'll have roughly maybe 10, 12, 15 minutes on concepts and just general slides that we're going to go through. And then probably around 20, 25 minutes for some demos. And then hopefully we'll go through those in that order. And then the rest of it would be just fielding questions. So anything you have top of mind, feel free to drop them in the chat as well. Sean and Shravya is going to monitor them. And feel free to interrupt me as well if some questions could be relevant for the group here. All right, cool. You move on. All right, cool. So just a quick poll before we get into the actual content, so that we have a sense of sort of like the polls in the room. Could you drop in the chat if sort of like where are you with Claude Code? So 1, if you've never touched it, totally fine. 2, if you use the Claude desktop app, for example, and the code tab on that. Or 3, if you've used it in terminal.
Nice. We got a good spread. Lots of 1s and 2s, a few 3s.
Okay. Nice. That's awesome.
You're in the right place.
Yep, you are definitely in the right place. Perfect. So, I think today is built for sort of like the foundational knowledge about some of these components. We'll demo it in. We'll demo sort of like how that actually works in the desktop app. So folks who are in it, who have used it, would probably look familiar. And then for folks who have been using it in a terminal or have joined us in prior sessions or courses and sessions, some of these might be a little basic for you, but otherwise, I think still would be helpful to get a sense for what the how they actually relate to each other. Cool. My clicker doesn't work. Okay, so let's see. So I'm going to go through today's content in the framing of an actual use case, so that it feels a little bit more sort of like practical. So imagine every Monday in your work, either you yourself or someone in the product team or in the data team or whatever else needs to write a weekly update on metrics. So that's probably pretty common, right, for folks here. Like you might have come across, hey, I need to write up my weekly status report around what I'm seeing last week on metrics and some updates associated with that, commentary and stuff like that.
Anyone have to do that? And maybe say on chat, does anyone have some weekly metric update they have to give? They really like, this is probably your favorite part of the week is giving that.
I'm looking for people who are going to say no here so that I can ask which company you work at. Cool. Yeah, that seems like that's a very common use case, right? So like one way to one way to leverage AI for something like that is probably very common as well, is use chatbots, right? Like, I can chat with it. I can perhaps create some projects, create some custom GPTs if you use ChatGPT, and but like, every single week you're probably going to have to like re-explain it to some extent to the AI about, hey, I want this and this in this same format. You might have to copy and paste prompts. You might have to copy and paste data in, things like that. So may not have the right connection to the different tools and all of that. So like that's still majority of workflows out there in terms of how people do weekly updates, and certainly with some of these more advanced capabilities like Claude Code and things like that. Through the different components that we're going to go through, you can actually automate quite a bit of that. And I think how the different components relate to each other and how you can actually use it in a efficient manner is something that we'll get into. But generally, the setup is weekly metrics review every Monday. We don't want people to kind of like have to do that from scratch every time. Cool. Okay. So here's a way to think about it, in that same practical example of what a skill is, what an agent is, what a hook is. You can start to think of Claude Code, for example, as a new hire. So for those who said one, who are not familiar with what Claude Code is, Claude Code is, if you're in a desktop app, it is a section where traditionally when it first started, it was like for engineers to help them write code and stuff. But it can actually do way more, and it can actually help you do a lot of the practical day-to-days, even if you write no code whatsoever. So think of Claude Code as a new hire in that picture in your head with that exact same setup around weekly metrics update. Claude Code as a new hire. And so what a skill is think of it as a playbook. So how you actually want to do the task. They're all in plain English everywhere, and you can define it once, and then it can keep the standard for you. So that's kind of like what a skill is. It's the playbook. Think of it that way. Then the delegation piece, which is the second one, that's the agent. So you can think of it as like your teammates. Like could be multiple teammates, could be teammates playing different in different functions, doing different tasks for you. But it's something that you can think of as someone that you can delegate to, and it will come back. You can ask it to, hey, go do this, and then it'll come back when it's done. So that's roughly speaking what an agent is. Somebody like almost like a worker. And then the third one, what is a hook? This is probably less talked about kind of like outside. A hook, think of it as the rule. So something that would always happen, and it is enforced deterministically. So things like, hey, I don't want certain things to happen, or I want something to happen at some trigger condition. So an example of that could be, hey, every time when I start Claude Code, I want it to check my bank account, like every time, and it will do that for you. That's super extreme, but like you get the idea. So like think of it as Claude Code or large language models in and of themselves could be smart, pretty capable new hires, but if you don't equip it with playbook, no delegation or no rules, then you can think of it as just a very confident intern. So these components, the skills, agents, and hooks effectively help them become a really effective, like helper, or I'm not going to use the word helper here. Think of them as like a very helpful companion. Cool. Let's see. Okay. So just going to go into a little bit more depth around what each of these are. So a skill is the playbook that I talked about. It's a short file. It is typically written in plain, or I mean, it's written in plain English. There is no code. in our example that we're gonna look through together, it would just say something like, "Hey, here's how we do the weekly review," for example. Like, "Hey, here's how I like it to be. Here's the different sections and stuff like that. Here's how you read the data, which data to read, how do you compare, how do you format yourself, things like that." And we'll actually read the one that we have prepared for you in just a little bit. If there is not, like a skill here, then it really depends on how you prompt it for, right? Like you have to give it all those instructions in your prompt. If it doesn't already have a playbook or a skill that it can already reference, then practically you have to do all of those heavy lifting in the prompt itself. So this makes it reusable and makes it consistent. The teammate here is the agent. So this is the idea number 2, teammate that you can delegate to, as I said just a little bit ago. And just like the skill, you also describe this in plain English. So something like, hey, this is your job. This is how you should think. This is what good answers look like. And so, like almost like a different pair of hands helping you on whatever tasks or goal that you're trying to accomplish. And in the demo that we're going to go through pretty soon, the agent here is a VP, so someone very senior at a company. So the agent that we're going to look at is a pretend, let's not call him VP, but a pretend VP, but somebody who's going to be very critical about a weekly report, so that we can sort of like not just prep the report, but also anticipate really hard questions off of those. Okay, cool. And let's see. So the hook, which is the third concept or the sort of third component, this one is, as I said before, not as well known. Many people don't use it, but effectively a hook is a rule that fires automatically and always. So it's not kind of like a note in your prompt. It's not something that you hope that it does. It checks every single time if it hits certain trigger condition. So again, the example I gave earlier is you can insert a hook when you start a session, and and for me, I would have a hook every session to see if there's any update on the folder that I'm working on, so the repo that I'm working on, and have it automatically sync with whatever update that perhaps Sean and Shravya have been making on a repo in a repository that we've been working together on. So you can insert custom rules just like that through hook, and you can define it at different points in your workflow, and becomes pretty flexible. So it is one guardrail that you can leverage it as a guardrail if you wanted to. So in our case, what we're going to see is that in the demo, we'll have sort of like a hook go through some of the basic data quality checks, such that it will always flag and always stop when the weekly report makes no sense. For example, if the underlying data is wrong.
Yeah, one of the biggest failure modes of, say, like a skill is that it doesn't fire, it doesn't trigger when it should. There's some probability, right, with a non-deterministic system that it's just not going to fire, especially if you have a pretty large system or like a overly large, complicated Claude MD file or something. So a hook is a really nice solution when you have some sort of task that must happen, that if it doesn't happen, there's a big risk to the output. That being said, because it is more deterministic, you kind of lose some of the, I don't know, the reasoning logic of like the system itself trying to figure out when something should work and something doesn't. So you don't want to have everything in hooks because you don't always need all this stuff firing.
I see a question from Hannah about whether a hook is what people are calling a harness today. So harness, think of it as referring to the whole package. So like all the skills, all the agents, all the hooks, all the helper functions, all the instructions in a given folder that you give to Claude. That's a harness. That's almost like a system that instructs Claude to behave a certain way and has certain standards and does things different in like this way or that way. That is what they're referring to. Like the entire system is the harness. So we'll have a harness here as well. It's a pretty basic one, but the idea carries over.
So there's a question from Abhishek around, can hook be used as an agent governance function? How does it tie to eval?
Can hook be used as agent governance function? How does it tie to eval? So you can think of a hook as sort of like one tool that you can use in whatever goal you're trying to accomplish. So if you want the agent to be, like Sean said before, to behave certain ways and you want additional guardrail, for example, you can leverage hooks if that makes sense for your use case. So for example, like in the example that you're going to see, it will not allow the agent to write a report if it senses that like when the agent wants to write a report, it will automatically go in and like check some of the data quality stuff and refuse to let the agent write the report itself if some of these don't check out. So you can leverage that as like a tool in the toolbox kind of thing.
I'll say as it pertains to evals, you could create a hook that kicks off like some sort of eval score. You're probably not going to be running to run like your evals in real time all the time when you're going through your process. One of the ways I leverage it for is more around traceability. So rather than having to go through the past transcripts or ask Claude itself, I have like hooks that basically whenever there is a lot of the queries, I use Snowflake. So whenever there's a tool call to Snowflake to run a query, that kicks off a hook to record the query that was actually written, the timestamp, assign an ID to it, assign the context around the question I'm asking. And then later on, when I do run my evals, I'm actually able to trace back to the exact SQL I knew that ran in code. I could get to the same thing if I went like into Snowflake and looked at my query history or something. But that's one way I do use it for evals. It's more about traceability.
Cool. I know there's a bunch of questions. I think those would be answered once you see the demo. So we'll get right into it. Okay, so cool. So here's the setup. Think of this company called Brewly. This is a coffee subscription app. And what we'll see is that it has daily signups, activations, revenue, and it's Monday morning. Pretend today is Monday morning, which means somebody owes the team a weekly review. So we're gonna look through a few things together. We're gonna run. So it comes with a skill, agent, and hook. We're gonna run the skill. We're gonna change something within that skill and then try to rerun it and see what happens. We will have my pretend VP read the report and then kind of like grill it, and we'll fat finger some of the data, and then we'll see what the hook does. So it should be pretty fun. Let me switch over here. Okay, so you should now see my Claude Claude desktop. You guys see this? Blank screen, almost. Cool, awesome. So for those who are not familiar, you can download the app from Claude. You just type Claude in your app store. You should be able to find it. And then up top here, there is a tab for code. This is where Claude Code is. If you are on the desktop app, there is terminal option as well. And that's where we teach some of the more advanced stuff. But we'll talk a little bit about that in after we see it in the desktop app. So let's see. So how does Claude Code work? Claude Code basically sits on top of a folder that you give it. So it has all the context within that folder. That folder is practically your harness, if you will. It's I'll show you where this one is. So this is my folder for this Brewly kind of like company. It's called CC 101 demo, but this is the folder. And within it, we can see that I have I have an agents folder, and this is sort of like the agent that we're going to take a look at. This is the executive reviewer, kind of like my pretend VP. We have skills here. So it has gotten a folder on skill, which is the weekly review skill, which would have instructions for how to actually write a weekly review report. And then it's got some data. So it's got some data, and I'll show you what that looks like. It's got some data around ad spend for Brewly, this coffee subscription company. So pretty simple. Just show you this. Every single day, it's got a channel for paid social and how much spend was put in. There's this gap here. We'll see Claude kind of flag that for us. And then we have another data set around some of the metrics that I alluded to, which is, again, pretty simple. It would just be, by channel, how many signups, how many activations, how much revenue we're getting from these on a daily basis. So just very simple setup, pretty bare in terms of like the different files and systems. But what we're here to do is just showcase how these things work in a very contained way. So on Claude Code, then what I do is I first point it at that folder specifically so that it knows what we're doing here. So remember the CC 101 demo? This is basically where you point it to. So local, and then here is where you can actually open a folder. And so I have already pointed it at that folder that I showed you, CC 101 demo. So it has access to all the files within that folder. So it knows all the context there. Now I'm just gonna say I want a weekly review report. So what I can do to sort of like trigger a skill, I can do /weekly review now, and then press enter. So how does it know that it is looking out for the weekly review skill? Again, if I come back to the folder here, it is under skills. I mean, it's grayed out because it's hidden files. And we're working on desktop app, so there's not a easy way to sort of navigate. But imagine this is the skills folder, a little hard to read. And then within that, there's a weekly review skill here. And while it's working, I'll show you what that looks like. So I can open the text. So this is just the text editor. So these are skill.md. MD means markdown. Think of it as just text files that AI can read pretty well. So hopefully you can see this. If you can't, you can do Command plus, or actually I can do it myself. Cool. So the skill itself is pretty simple. So description, generate Brewly's weekly metric review from this data set. And then the instructions are, you're writing Brewly's Monday morning metrics update, same format every week. So read this first, and then do the, like how do you compare in terms of which day to which day, compared to last completed week, write a report to this folder here, which is just right here under reports. Just write it here. That's basically what it's saying. And then, this is the format or the standard that you're giving AI to output. So TLDR, the number, what moved, one risk, one action, and then keep the whole report under 250 words, numbers only, no charts, and then round percentages to one decimal place. So that's a skill. And so once this guy, so I just basically did nothing but ran it, right? So I triggered it, and then it went to analyze the data, the metrics.csv file that we saw, and it outputs this report over here. And I can click that. And then on the right panel, this is the output. So, it's got the TLDR, it's got numbers, it's got what moved, and one risk, and one action. So basically, what it's flagging is, hey, there's a double-digit decrease in signups, activations, and revenue, but versus the week before. But then the entire decline in here traces to 2 days when paid social reported almost no activity, while organic and referral held steady. So we sort of saw that like just manually with our own eyes in the CSV file. But it's able to that's kind of like the punchline that it gave from this skill right here. Oops. Okay, cool. So I am going to let's see. I'm going to change this a little bit, this skill a little bit, so you can see what that looks like. So if I go back to this skill file here, and I'll just open it up again. So instead of, for example, point number 4, keep the whole report under 250 words, I can, let's say, modify it a little bit. So open the report with a status light, green, yellow, or red, and 1 sentence on why. So I'm just going to save this. So I modify the skill directly myself. And I'm going to run the same report again. So I'll clear context first. So what I just did is /clear. What that means is I just wipe out the conversation that we had so that Claude can start fresh again. Weekly review. Oh, and I need to delete the previous copy here. Okay. So I'm running again the same trigger, so triggering the same skill, and then it's going to do the same thing, but this time it should adhere to the standard, an updated standard that we gave it. Still thinking.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Maybe you could answer one question here before. So how was the folder created, and where did everything in CC101 demo folder come from? I just said we'll answer quickly live, but.
Cool. Yeah, so for this lesson, I worked with Claude to create something that we can demo together around this fictional company. And so Claude created the sort of like the entire setup around the skill, the agent, and the data set.
Hey, hi. Would you consider yourself a coder?
Would I consider myself a coder? No, absolutely not.
Ben asked the question if you need to know how to code, use Claude Code.
Oh,
no,
no,
it
not
helps.
as
No, you don't. It helps to like review code for sure, like what it's writing. But no, you don't.
Also, there's multiple ways of reviewing things. Yes, if you know code, how to code it's easier for you to review code. But if you know how to check the output of the code, that also is a great way to review things. So that's the reason why it's a lot more easier to build with Claude Code now, because you don't need to know how to code, but you need to know how to validate the output of the code and how fast it took, or have good analytical questions to ask Claude Code to help you understand if the code's doing the right job or not.
Yeah, and you can validate or review that output manually, or you can build automated systems. You may have heard of the term like AI evals to create actual like metric scores around their reliability and trustworthiness of the output as well.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. So the same skill the same skill with an updated instruction on point number 4 ran, right? So now it gave us the status light. So it determines that this should be a yellow. the headline numbers are down double digits, but that's because of this gap, and it's totally explainable. So Claude thinks this should be just a yellow, not a red or something to be alarmed by. So now what I'm going to do is, let's see, I am going to ask it. So I'm just going to exit out of this. Have the exec reviewer agent read the latest review the way my VP would. So I'm going to ask it to basically trigger the agent that's also in the same folder here, so that I can prep for tough questions that could be coming from VPs reading this report. Now, again, so it's going to go do its thing. This agent takes on this persona here, which I'll show you. Okay, so back to while it works, we're back to this folder here. You can always inspect your all these agent files, skill files, because they're just English. So you can. So I'm going to open again in text edit and make it bigger. So this is the agent for this guy. So this agent is called exec-reviewer. And what it does is it reads the report the way a busy executive would and flags the questions you get asked. Use it before sending anything upward. So this is sort of like instructions for Claude to behave like this. You are Brewly's toughest executive reader. Act like the VP of growth. No patience for fluff. Who here deals with folks like this at your company, or are this at your company? Nice, cool. So pretty common. I saw a lot of hands up. Yeah, so it would read the way she would, skim the TLDR, numbers table, find the biggest unexplained change, demand why, ask what we're doing about it, flag any number that invites follow-up nobody in the room can answer, and then report back with exactly this. So you can also give it some behavior. So 3 questions you will get asked, 1 thing to fix before you hit send. So that's the idea. So again, all English. So let's go back to it. All right. So our exec reviewer, our pretend VP, has done its thing. So verify the numbers, caught a real flaw in my framing. So the 3, let me see, all 3. Yeah. So let's see the questions. Let's get to the questions. Lost or just miscounted. So this is a question from the VP. Like, did we actually lose those signups? Did we actually spend, or did we not? And why did organic hit weekly highs the same 2 days? So in the actual data set itself, it saw that within those 2 days, when paid social or paid channel was gone, that organic saw a little bit of a bump there. So it's basically giving kind of like questions around some of the stuff that's unexplained in the report itself. And Claude is almost like, it gets pretty meta. It's like, oh, this agent tells me that I did these things insufficiently. And so, now it says, okay, based on what the agent told me, I recommend that I fix this report this way before it goes out. So from here on, I can always say like, oh yeah, go answer these questions directly, or like do some other things to sort of like help me prepare for these questions ahead of time. So
hey, we had a bunch of questions in the chat. Or if you finish your thought, and then I have some questions for you.
Go ahead. I'm going to go to hooks right now. So if there's relevant questions around this.
Cool. I think this, so 2 questions that are kind of linked together. Laura asks, is that an agent or a skill? And then Emma asks, how do you decide whether to build a skill file or an agent file?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this exec reviewer, if you recall, is an agent. The way to think about it is like again, agents could be your, like, think of it as like your workers. So things that accomplish very specific set of tasks, and can take on very specific personas. Like the teammate was the analogy. I think some examples for, and this is pretty, like the line could blur because an agent could use skills, a skill could call an agent could call multiple agents, and stuff like that. The way to think about it is some common uses of skills, for example, would be, for example, here is a VP, like a VP agent. So it's got its own context. It will figure out kind of like, hey, based on the instructions, I'm going to do these things this way. So it's almost like independent of everything else that's going on. Some other very common agents that people spin up a lot, ourselves included, would be, maybe a reviewer, maybe a planner, maybe a writer, maybe a researcher, something like that. So like they take on those specific sort of like personas and go do it specifically just themselves. Anything you would add there, Sean?
No, I don't think so. I had a couple more questions from the chat around the way you're accessing data. So if your data is connected via Snowflake MCP, how would that live in the folder or be pulled in? And then maybe that's the first one. I can kind of answer that actually. For the Snowflake MCP, yeah, all of that analysis, all of the queries and everything that's going to be ran is going to be run in Snowflake's hosted environment. It's not like ran on your machine. And then the output of those, if you're going to do further analysis on that, those can be pulled into your folder. You could have the results at any level of those queries pulled into your folder and like saved in like CSV or JSON or something like that. But for the most part, it's just ran in Snowflake, and then whatever the kind of answer is then stored and say like you generate like a deck or a chart or something.
There's a question by Benjamin and also a question Q&A by Saurabh. This is probably around the context. This is around how does Claude know how does a certain position would respond, and that's Benjamin in the detail there. And even Saurabh's question is, can it answer all questions of the VP without the organizational context? So both are related to how does it know the information about how a VP would respond and the details and context around it.
Yeah. So quickly answering that is the more context, the better. Obviously, like it's not gonna like write what we read together on what the VP kind of like agent file looks like is relatively generic, right? It's just, hey, you're the toughest grader or the toughest critic of the business and stuff like that. And as specific as it only got to as specific as, oh, you're the VP of growth, but you can imagine you can have it be, hey, this VP is very short-tempered, very like very sensitive to numbers, very this or that, cares about these things. Like those would be context that you can add in this example here. It stays pretty basic, just so it doesn't sort of like blow up the thing. All right, so I'm gonna go through an example of a hook, and then we'll take Q&A. Cool. So I am going back to the data set, like the CSV file. So I'm just gonna pretend that I just fat fingered something, right? So let's call 772. I'm gonna change this to, let's say, like 900, something like that. And I'm saving, and I just saved this file or save this change. And then I will be here, and let me delete the report as well. And then I'll run it again and see what happens. So I'll do clear context. So all this conversation that we had does not pollute what it's going to do. So I'm just going to run weekly review again. And then this time it should not allow me to write the report directly because we fat fingered something and it makes no sense in the data. And so while it works, we can also look at the hook. So hooks lives under .claude hook or hooks. It's a Python file, but again, like the first block of it, you don't need to know Python to read it. Okay, so this is pretty much the description of this guy. So Brewly data integrity gate. This is called check data, this file. So before any report is written, validate no duplicate date channel rows. Activation can never exceed signups. And we just fat fingered something where activation exceeded signup. So it should flag that. No negative or malformed values. So that's all it does. And then it has these Python codes to make sure it does that. And it is trying to compute and write the report, and then it should flag it. And while it's doing that, let's check on time. Okay, let me quickly go to terminal here. So obviously what we've been, oh, well, here we go. Okay, so now it says fail to write this file that it's trying to write the report because a data integrity hook blocked it from shipping. And so this is correct because it did the second check there where activations cannot exceed signup, and then we just fat fingered ourselves to that. So effectively, this is the guardrail that got triggered. And so that's what I wanted to show here in terms of how that works in the whole system. It's a pretty basic system, like very simple, right? Only 3 things: 1 skill, 1 agent, 1 hook. You can imagine it sort of like fanning out depending on whatever workflow you're trying to automate. And for us, we do analysis and we do a lot of number crunching and understanding of data. So what I'm going to show you is sort of like the open source system called AI Analyst that we open sourced that does a lot more on just making sure that Claude behaves in a way that incorporates all the best practices of doing analysis and all that kind of stuff. So I'll do that quickly, and then we'll finish off, and we'll go into Q&A. Cool. Okay. So for those who might have seen Terminal, this is Terminal, Claude Code, and Terminal, and this is the system or the harness that we have that we open source. So feel free to go grab it, take a look if you're interested. And it's got a bunch of skills around. So what this is it does analysis end to end, just like how myself, how Sean, how Shravya would in different tech companies. So it's got like a bunch of guardrails, a bunch of skills on how to do certain things, a bunch of agents to actually do the things, and generally speaking, what it does is it takes a business question in, and then it gives sort of like like a finished output of the analysis itself back out, either in the form of a deck or like a one pager or anything like that. I'm not going to go super deep into it, but you can imagine based on what we just shown in Claude Code desktop, like you can start kind of like making the thing more tailored to your use case, make it more sophisticated so that it tackles the things that you care about. And so that's really the idea there. Okay. Cool. So I'm going to skip that. So I think this slide is worth going through. Like, like why do all these things matter, right? Like why are we all here today? Why do we want to even learn about this? Can't we just do it, traditionally, in our own ways? The thing that we tell people now is that every analysis is a bet. And the impact is how many bets you place times how often they win times how big the win is. So it's almost like mathematical, right? Like 3 components, and being able to use AI, build with AI in the way that accomplishes, what we just kind of like the different components that we learned about, actually helps you with all 3 of these components. And so, obviously the first one is like you just get more shots on goal, because now things that used to take, let's call like an hour to do weekly review, now takes, 1 click, or like, 5 minutes or something like that, because now you have a system to help you do that. So just by definition, you're much faster. You still have to review the outputs and stuff, but in general, it's going to be much less than if you do it manually. So speed is a pretty obvious one. The second one is your hit rate, hopefully should go up as well, which because AI can now do a lot more of the sort of like the slicing and dicing. So the depth that you are able to do, like the depth and quality, should also go up because of the system that you are able to build with AI. And the third is sort of like the size of any given bet that you decide to analyze or look into. Traditionally, when your execution capability is limited, or your team's capability is limited because because of effort, because it takes a while. Now, like in that world, a lot of times we bias towards something that's more of a sure win. Like we can see that, oh, this would probably yield pretty good results, so we're just going to default to that, and we don't go for the venture bets and stuff. Now with AI, you can actually go look at the venture bets because everything else is compressed, and you can now take a swing at the home runs. You can afford to do that, and so all 3 of these components would actually just multiply in and of themselves if you're able to leverage AI and also build some of these. For us, it's an analysis, so like agentic analytics systems. Cool. This is the last slide, which is we have Agentic Analytics 101 boot camp coming up next week. This is 2 hours a day live from Monday to Friday next week, where we teach how to actually build something that's tailored to your acquiring the skills to build something that you can tailor to your specific company needs. So we're going to go through how to design an agentic system around your own work. We're going to go through how to actually write your own skills and agents, obviously in plain English. We didn't see any code there. Connected to your tools. So your, like different things that we're going to showcase would be things like Notion, Snowflake, stuff like that. And by the end of it, you're going to be leaving with your working system that on your laptop. And so it's kind of like the skill sets that we teach to get people equipped to be able to sort of like build anything you want to really automate your own workflows, especially in the domain of analytics and data.
Yeah, it's really cool. I think one of the things like anyone, like a lot of people are starting to use Claude Code now. A lot of people are pressured by their leadership as well to like, oh, you got to use Claude Code, you got to use AI or whatever. Meanwhile, those people have no freaking idea what to do with it. They're like, I hope this like AI thing works because we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars each month on it. So this is one of those things we have people come through our courses and they go from just like basically using it like a chat back and forth to like, hey, I've actually built an agentic system that is totally customized to the goals we're trying to accomplish with our team. And helping us make better decisions. So like anyone can use data to like empower their workflows, whether you're a data scientist or a product manager or in banking, or we had a chef come in and join us a couple of cohorts ago even. I'm not sure what they're using it for, but that was pretty cool. So yeah, it's pretty good. The other thing that we go into that a lot of our courses don't go into is we go into validation and evals. So we teach a bit around not only how do you build an agentic system that outputs analysis for you, that outputs answers for you, but how do you actually build systems that validate whether that output is reliable or trustworthy, because it's kind of pointless if the AI is outputting stuff and then you have to go like do it all by hand, or not by hand, but manually the old way anyways to even see if it works or not. We do have a lot of questions. Should we?
So Mike has a question about if this is like an advanced course versus when people are just starting out, would that still be okay?
101 is our non-advanced course. Yeah, we've had people go through, so we have a bunch of tiers of courses. 101's our most introductory course. You don't need to know how to code. You don't need to have used Claude Code before. You do have to have a Claude Code subscription. That's kind of basically it, honestly. And then we have a 201 course, which I think right now is set up in August or September, which is a multi-week course, which goes a lot deeper into advanced topics. We usually recommend people take the 101 first before jumping straight into that one, but you don't necessarily have to.
Olga had a great question about creating skills agents to parse qualitative data. And they were asking if this is something that, that would be taught in the course, or maybe if Olga, if you're here, you could ask it live too. Yeah.
Parse qualitative data, how different, similar to the demo that you shared today. We'll teach you the foundations for, let's say, like how to, like, again, as we talked about, skills is just the standard that we give it. So, for example, for qualitative data, you might want Claude to parse it in these certain sentiments or these certain qualitative dimensions or something like that. So you can give it that example and things like that. So, we go through how to build your first skill. We go through how to chain skills and agents together. We go through in the thinking of the entire system itself. So this sounds like could be a part of sort of like the bigger system design thinking that you can make it much richer or much simpler if you want to.
Yeah, it's really good at working with qualitative data, to be honest. So one of the things, I don't know if other people have this, but one of the things I always hear, or always heard in my work, is like, hey, you need to be on like the customer calls more. You need to be on these UX calls. And I enjoy being on them, but honestly, I have a bunch of other shit to do. And one thing that I've found is, so we use Gong that records transcripts of all of our customer calls, all of our UX research calls. And I went through and I had Claude going through parse like 1,200 customer calls and kind of just go on a loop on itself of like, hey, start forming hypotheses around this is kind of what I think people are thinking about this product, but go in and see if you can basically collaborate that or like take an adversarial approach and try and disprove it, and then just start like identifying like people who are like for or against whatever this hypotheses, and then source all of that information for me. I think the cool thing with the qualitative stuff is you can summarize it, but if you have hooks set up for every time it does like a summary, you can also have Claude store like a really nice kind of research hub where it's sourcing back to the original stuff as well for you to validate.
And I see some questions around, do we recommend using Claude Code or other Claude products? The way to think about it is chat, like the chatbot. If you go to claude.ai, just like the interface or ChatGPT, think of it as like a question answer thing. So you ask a question, it will answer you back. That's sort of like the model, the mental model there. Cowork, which I think many people have referenced here, is if you want Claude to do something for you. So, perhaps, I need to clean the spreadsheet, or I need to organize these folders. You can use Cowork to do that for you. Claude Code is where you actually build stuff. So you can build systems. You can build the thing that we just looked at, like the CC 101 demo, the entire thing. You can build it in. That's where you typically build things that would then you can use and improve on and keep iterating afterwards. So think of it as, if you know Claude Code, and again, you don't need to code. You don't need to learn how to code. I don't know how to code. You basically know everything that predates that in that whole chain.
A very out of left field example of not needing to know how to code to use this is my wife is a ceramics artist and she uses Claude Code to help her know at what like degrees Fahrenheit she should fire certain pots, and also to build templates to make different types of like mugs, and also to build herself like a boot camp to get better at like using the wheel. It's like it's crazy the stuff you can apply it to. Obviously, none of that's what we're going to be covering in our course, but for the ceramic artists here, she has no idea how to code, and she's using it.
We have
And
bonus
futures now.
content on ceramics, actually. Don't tell
Yeah.
them that.
Hey, she made this mug. Thanks, Claude.
Wow. Oh man.
No, this is pre-Claude Code. This is pre-Claude Code. Okay, this is all human.
All right, cool. We are at the top of the hour. I think we're 15 minutes over. Does anyone have any burning questions that you want to ask? Maybe we'll take one or two more before we close.
Can I just ask real quick, based on what you said, Hi, and is that Claude Cowork would probably be better for me if I need to build like status reports or project plans? Is that what I would use, or use Claude Code to do that, and just try to figure out what the best way to do that would be?
Status report. Yeah, so you can do co-work. I think it can help you build some like pretty simple stuff. If your status report involves, for example, chaining together a lot of tools, a lot of different agents, you want it to have some sort of steps in between that reviews things for you, that does like delegation of splitting like responsibilities, and each one of them can have different behaviors and stuff. Like the more involved the thing is, the less co-work, for example, is going to be able to help you in building those out.
Okay. So the more detail I want code is better. The just more basic co-work would work.
Yeah, co-work is really good at if you already have something for it to just do, like work on. So like, for example, like, if you already have a system, imagine the demo that we did. If it's like very built out, more involved, you can use co-work on top of that, and it will be like, yeah, it's pretty good, for example.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. Great session, guys. I appreciate it.
Cool.
Oh, thanks for all the great questions. If people have other questions in the meantime, we have a Slack channel. I'm gonna drop a link to join. One sec. So yeah, you can join here if you want to join our Slack. It's public chat, our public channel. There's about 1,000 people in there. So people who are working with AI, from beginners to advanced, people who have taken our courses, people who haven't. We drop a lot of material and learnings there as we come along. We also, it's also a good way to keep up with any of the free workshops we're hosting. But if you have any questions there too, we're on it all day. So happy to answer there. Or you can DM us on LinkedIn, or email us at hello@AI-Analyst-Lab as well. And I think we actually had a couple signups for our course in the past 20 minutes from here. So we'll see some of you there.
Cool. Awesome. Welcome. And then after this, I'll send out both the I'll send out the slides and also the demo folder. I think that there's a lot of interest in looking over what's in it yourself. So I'll send that out as well, and a recap and recording and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.